When I was growing up, there were so many things my parents taught me. And one of those things was the fact that it's not advisable for a young person to go into a relationship multiple times before they end up with their partner. Hi there. Before we go into today's episode of God, Life and Love, I want you to click on the subscribe button if you are just coming across my videos. And if you are already a subscriber, I want you to hit on the notification bell so that you don't miss any amazing updates. Today's issue is it advisable for a young person or a person to date multiple people before they end up with their partner? And this is the context in which the question is coming, right? So you have a person or an individual dating, say, 6 people, not at the same time but consecutively. So let's say you date 7 people one after the other, and then you end up with the 8th person, which is now your spouse. So the question is it an advisable situation, or is it advisable, is it okay for someone to do that? Now, this is my take, and I believe it is factual on this issue, and it's the fact that human beings, based on our nature, are somehow incapable, not incapable, but it's quite difficult for us to isolate totally circumstances and situations. So we tend to find that someone interprets an experience based on probably a certain incident that has happened in their lives beforehand. So they don't get to interpret, or we don't get to interpret such scenarios or incidences purely based on the incident itself, but because of the memory it's bringing up or it's stirring up in us. For instance, say someone sees a hot bowl of soup. Now, that person is not going to be judging whether or not it is okay for him to touch that bowl of soup because it is currently hot. But the person is going to be judging it based on the fact that in prior times, that person has touched a hot bowl of soup, and the person has probably gotten scalded by it. So that person is going to conclude that it is not okay, or it is not ideal for him or her to touch that hot bowl of soup. So why am I saying all this long story? The essence of it is that we need to understand that a relationship is a fusion of 2 people. Yes, marriage brings you to that point where the 2 actually become one. But a relationship requires that 2 individuals are working hand in hand to achieve a purpose or a goal. So let's say I'm into a relationship, right? Now, myself and my partner, we are both together for a reason. And if we separate, it's not going to eliminate all the factors of that person's influence in my life. So let's say times that I've been with the person and then the person complained about something or complimented something. My separation from that person is not going to eliminate my memories of all those things. So, like it or not, the person's imprint is still left in my life. So I go on to date the next person, or I go on into a relationship with the next person, and then I realize that I am judging this current person's actions and reactions not purely based on he himself, but also with a hint or a touch of an influence of my previous relationship. You should get the gist. So this is it. Whether or not you end up marrying the person, there is a footprint that person has left in your life. And the more people you date and separate, the more difficult it becomes for you to meet your partner and enjoy a relationship purely based on your personality and that person's personality. So you're going to be judging a lot of things based on experiences that you've had with other guys as a lady or with other ladies as a guy. So even when this person's character or even when this person's nature is quite different from the people you've dated, you assume that if I've dated 7 guys and 5 of them were this kind of people, if I'm going to end up with the 8th person, I would assume that the 8th person is most likely going to be behaving along the lines of those other 5 that I have dated, even if the person's characters are showing me clear traits that they are different. So at the long run, we realize that, of course, it is not advisable as a young person or as an individual to have multiple partners. And I'm not saying multiple partners in the sense of dating all of them at once, but one after the other, all of them at once. However you want to classify it, it is not advisable for a person. That's why we always emphasize that as a young, I don't know why I'm emphasizing on young, but as an individual, you shouldn't go into a relationship if you don't see yourself ending up with the person. It would be easy for me to say you shouldn't go into a relationship if you are not being led by God, but then I understand that not everybody has gotten to that point. So let's stay on the basics. And on the basics, it is advisable that if you don't see yourself ending up with a person, or if you don't see yourself building a future or having a future with an individual, then what's the point of actually dating that person? Because I've met quite a number of people tell me things like, oh, I can't marry that kind of lady, but you know, she cooks so well, so we are just dating for now. And then the sad part of it is that in many of these scenarios or in many of these circumstances, the other partner is actually building castles, which at the end of the day we realize they are castles in the air. But then this person is building so much hope, having so much belief that I am ending up somewhere in the future with this person, while the other party is here with the conclusion that I am not ending up with this person. So here is my take. If you don't see yourself having a future with a person, there is no point dating them. Of course, there are instances where people go into a relationship and at the end of the day, you know, they part ways because maybe circumstances and all those things played out. That happens. But what I'm trying to point at is that you should not intentionally, deliberately go into a relationship where you don't see yourself having a future with that person. And then, of course, you know that it can't be multiple people that you want to have a future with. So that's a side sub for those who are having multiple partners at the same time. Because why would you be dating 4 guys at the same time? Why? But then, maybe one day we'll talk about values in relationship. Today, the issue is it advisable to date multiple partners before you end up with your spouse? And the answer is no. You shouldn't. You should not even want to, because the adverse effect is too massive. It's too massive because so many couples actually end up having quarrels, not because of their relationship, but because of the past relationships that they've had, which could have been avoided if they went in with the right orientation. What do you think though? What's your comment? What's your take? Do you think it's okay? And do you think if someone has multiple partners before they meet their spouse or before they end up with their spouse, do you think it's actually going to have little or no effect on their current relationship? Let me hear your comments.